Todd. First, let's talk facts. I'll let you know when I get to the opinions. Economists, and apparently most politicians, recognize that we have a hard time grasping huge numbers. We don't truly understand the relationship between billion, billion, and trillion. Allow me to illustrate. If we pooled our resources and stacked up 1,000 crisp new $1 bills here on this table, our stack would be about 4.3 inches tall. If we grew our assets to $1 million, we'd have to walk across the street and take the elevator up to the 30th floor of the US Bank Tower just to reach the top of our stack. That's the power of multiplying by 1,000. Now, if we had a stack of bills, $1 billion stack of bills, and we laid it down on its side, it would stretch from here to the Tacoma Dome and back again. A stack nearly 68 miles tall. A $1 trillion stack would encircle the Earth almost 3 times. This year's federal deficit is $1.3 trillion. Remember that when someone tells you they're going to fix the deficit by cutting $1 billion here and $1 billion there. Sure, $1 billion is a lot of money. Heck, if we stacked up $30 billion, that would get us all the way from here to Washington, D.C. But once you arrive in our nation's capital, you would still need to find a stack of money big enough to encircle the Earth 3.5 times just to balance this year's budget. Our national debt is soon going to top $16 trillion, a stack tall enough to reach the moon and back twice, with enough left over to get us halfway back for a 3rd trip. Some people say we're headed for a fiscal cliff. They're talking about the decision now facing Congress to either let current law take effect, restoring tax rates and imposing mandatory spending cuts, which could slow growth and possibly slide the economy back into recession. Or they could cancel some or all of those scheduled changes, which will grow the deficit and virtually guarantee a major debt crisis somewhere down the road. Congress clearly sees this cliff coming. Even so, constant maneuvering for partisan advantage has made compromise unreachable. Okay, here's my opinion. And a few more facts. The election could slightly tilt the field one way or the other. But if Congress acts as expected, extending the tax cuts while minimizing automatic spending cuts, the likely result will be modest short-term economic growth and continued deficits. We have to do better than that. Our national debt will top $25 trillion within this decade. None of the projected spending cuts will stop that. In fact, if Congress cut all 100% of the discretionary spending, entirely eliminating most federal departments, including defense, we would still have a deficit. If they then cut entitlement programs by 50%, an utterly unthinkable amount, we might make a small dent in the debt. But our economy, society, and government would be in shambles. To believe we can grow our way out of this situation at current tax rates, one must assume more than a decade of absolutely unprecedented growth and spending cuts just to balance the budget. By then, our debt would exceed $30 trillion. My point is simple. The current debt represents $16 trillion worth of stuff that we bought and paid for. Now, I'm not entirely sure we got our money's worth. But that's no excuse for passing this appalling debt on to our children, our grandchildren, and their children's children. Yes, we do need major spending cuts, but the hard truth is we also need a fair tax system that generates sufficient revenue to balance the budget in the near term and begin paying down debt over the long term. Yes, that means higher taxes, which might temporarily slow the economy. And no one really wants that. But our burgeoning debt is a ticking time bomb that will eventually kill our economy dead. Our current debt works out to $140,000 per taxpayer. In case you're wondering, that's a stack about 50 feet high. I say it's time we pay up. Other than that, I have no opinion. Thank you very much.